Hello and welcome back to the Taylor Seminars where we talk about how Taylor Swift turns life into poetry. My name is Hannah and I'm here with my co-host Exquisite.
Hi,
Hello.
Hannah. I'm so excited.
Oh, oh, we are starting the 3 a.m. tracks. I remember Taylor had released that little video
Yeah.
or something that said like
Chaotic
surprise at 3
surprise.
a.m.
Chaotic 3 a.m.
Chaotic
surprise.
surprise? Did you And so we were like, oh, it's probably like another music video or maybe we don't know, but no one expected for it to be a whole other set of
She was like a
songs.
mini
The
EP.
one clue, yeah, the one clue we had was that people noticed that Aaron Dessner was not on any of the uh, standard edition
Mhm.
tracks, and he posted something
He was like,
cryptic
don't
on
worry, or
his Twitter.
something. He was like
He was like, things are not what they seem,
something,
or things are not
something
always
like
what
that.
they
And everybody's
seem.
like, what does that mean? What does that mean?
Yeah, and like Aaron is not an Easter egg guy, right? Like he is not, he's not petty or like, wanting to drop these clues, but clearly she had given him the okay to be like, hey, like, you do something fun, like let them know that you're around. And he is all over these 3 a.m. tracks. So before we jump into the Great War, we're gonna kind of, as you can tell, like do a little
Yeah.
overview of these tracks. I mean, when we saw, like, we didn't even get a track listing, right? It
No,
just
they
like
just
appeared.
appeared. They just appeared. And I remember because I was still up because one, I had a flight that left at 5:30 a.m. that morning
Mm-hmm.
because I was going to my friend's wedding the next day. Um, and I remember I was up and I'm an hour behind Eastern Standard, so it was 2 a.m. And
Right.
oh my God, when I saw that, I still had my headphones on because I was looping Midnight and I saw it updated. I was like, what is this? What is this? And I saw everybody was like tweeting the link to the Great War and they were like, why is this not on the main album? And I was like, oh my gosh, let's press play. Oh, Taylor, she's a sicko, is what she is.
Yeah.
Um,
On Instagram, she announced it by saying, surprise, I think of Midnight as a complete concept album with those 13 songs forming a full picture of the intensities of that mystifying mad hour. However, there were other songs we wrote on our journey to find that magic 13. I'm calling them 3 a.m. tracks. Lately, I've been loving the feeling of sharing more of our creative process with you like we do from the Vault tracks. So it's 3 a.m. and I'm giving them to you now.
She's so sick in the head.
She's evil.
So she gave us Great War, Bigger Than the Whole Sky, Paris, High Infidelity, Glitch, Would've, Could've, Should've, and Dear Reader. And mind
Yes.
you,
And
no one
so
had heard Hits
here's
Different yet because it was on the CD that nobody had.
That is also true. That is also true. And here we have the second ending of the
Mhm.
album, you might say, which we will get to. We have talked and will continue to talk a lot about Dear Reader, but um, yeah, I mean this section of the album, tracks I guess 14 through 20, are almost like little footnotes. I mean, we can debate as we go through the episodes. We'll go through like why we think she did
Mhm.
or didn't include
And
them.
I would just like to preface it
But
and say, I think it made sense why none of these were on the main album. It
I
makes
agree.
sense to me. The main album
Yeah.
is so conceptually tight that she had to sprawl elsewhere.
Yeah. And I feel like it helped people to really focus on the 13 sleepless nights. Like these are little episodes
Hmm.
versus I feel like if some of these songs were on the main album, people would focus on one aspect of the album instead of really appreciating this idea that she was playing with.
Exactly.
But it does give us some great insight into the
Oh,
turmoil that was
brother,
going
the
on.
insight we get. Oh my.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So we will be spending the next few weeks going through these songs. And today we start with the first one, The Great War, where if you heard those opening notes, immediately Aaron Dessner song, right? Like
Immediate.
we didn't have any of the written producer credits, but you heard the room and you're like,
It's
oh, there
Aaron.
he
We
is.
missed you, Aaron. That's what it was.
Yeah. So The Great War, written and produced by Taylor and Aaron Dessner, um, and it was so it was such a return to, you know, that folklore evermore vibe that we've
Hmm.
had, and so it felt very
It felt
familiar.
familiar, but it was
Um,
also like, oh, this is Midnight. It was fresh in its own Midnight
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
and I know the Aaron Dessner fans were just so thrilled to be like he's back. So, yeah, let me dive in. Verse 1. My knuckles were bruised like violets, sucker punching walls, cursed you as I sleep talked. Spineless in my tomb of silence, tore your banners down, took the battle underground. And maybe it was ego swinging, maybe it was her. Flashes of the battle come back to me in a blur.
There's just so much opening up the song with my knuckles were bruised like violets. Like she's already giving us just imagery. She's like, look at my hands. And the first thing you see, like the first thing you see is like, oh, this evidence that she's been fighting something. And then
Yeah,
immediately she's like, I was sucker punching a wall. First of all, a sucker punch is to like hit somebody when they aren't expecting it, especially where they aren't
right.
expecting it. You can't sucker punch a wall. Walls aren't but that's what makes it so intriguing. She's like, the wall wasn't expecting her to punch it, and it's like is the wall a wall itself, or is she like describing him as a wall? Is that what that is? It's just interesting.
I never thought
I
about it that
know,
way.
because it's like, can you sucker punch a wall? Like, were the walls that he had built up around himself, or was it the walls she had built
Oh,
up around herself? What were the walls? I don't know.
I mean, I just thought it was more, to me, it read because of the sucker punch, it was more like she punched the wall suddenly. Like everything was
Hmm.
fine, and then boom, she
Exactly.
just hits the wall. Like it's an outburst that seems to come out of
Hmm.
nowhere, and she's doing it
Hitting them
frequently.
walls
Where
hard
you know
enough
when,
to hurt. Like, oh my goodness.
yeah, and I love the wordplay. Actually, my knuckles were bruised like violets because it also sounds like
Hmm.
violence, right? Those two words are so interlinked, and you're like, even if you misheard it as my bruise like violence, but then it works through this whole imagery of obviously of a war. So I think she did that on purpose.
Yeah.
Violence,
A deep
violence,
purple
because of
bruise.
the sound.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah, and she is unwell
she's
here.
so unwell.
She is sleep talking. She is, but also so as she's sleep talking, right? She's saying words, but she's also silent in a tomb. She
Yep.
is
And spineless
both
too.
talking and like avoiding at the same
Which is
time.
interesting. She's like, the only time I can talk to him is in my sleep, because there is something
Yes.
about sleep where you're like, your guard is down, right? And so that's when she can get out like what it is she needs to say. And what she needs to say is curses. She's like pissed about something. Um and
Mm-hmm.
she's pissed, and she can only get out in her sleep because when she's awake, that's when she goes silent in a tomb, like a cold, locked herself in tomb. Like, are those the walls she's punching when she's awake? Like the walls of her tomb of silence? We don't
Ooh.
know. But she obviously feels some type of way about not being able to um explain, or at least approach the conversation that needs to be had, because she calls herself spineless. She's like, I'm a
Yeah.
coward
To
for not wanting to talk
yeah,
to
to
you.
not have a spine is to not have a
Yeah.
backbone, right? So she is yeah, not standing up for herself or not being brave or just feels like a coward
Hmm.
and running away. Like maybe a bolter.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
tore your banners down. So if you don't know, like a banner is uh, obviously you've seen like advertisement banners, but back in the day in wars, banners were used to display whose side was where, so that you
Hmm.
wouldn't fight the wrong soldier. Because back then, if you were like in medieval warfare, peasants didn't really have their own, you know, fancy uniforms. The knights might have like their cool crests and stuff, but you would have
Yeah.
banners to like know like this is my king, this is my lord or whatever.
Hmm.
So if you're tearing
This
these
is my
banners down, you're like,
allegiance.
no king, yeah, no banners, no. So
It's
yeah, it's
treasonous even to do that.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah. And also, just in these few lines, what we did not know when we were listening to it is that this opening verse is so intimately connected to would have, could have, should have. The curse you as I sleep talk versus I fight with you in my sleep, and then tore your banners down versus years of tearing down our banners. We're not going to get into what it could have that much because that episode is coming up, but it's very important to know that these songs are so intertwined, intertwined, they're
Yes.
intertwined, and yeah,
Perhaps the the muse may not be the same, but the feelings that she
the
got
emotion,
were very similar.
fact that they are affecting each other, it affects her in similar ways is like crazy. And because we're not talking about what if, could have, should have, we can't get into it. But I can talk about Maroon because this is like to me feels connected to my Maroon theory of like I wake with your legacy over me, and this is part of that legacy, the like having to fight in her sleep, the like tearing the battles down, right? The banners, all of that.
Oh,
Anyway, so she took the battle underground, which is like she was in the
yeah. So
trenches.
she was in the trenches, um, guerrilla
Yeah, passive
warfare.
aggressive.
Yeah, yeah, and now and then she kind of backs up. She's like, "What happened? Maybe it was ego
Hmm.
swinging, right?" So, so like swinging as in like swinging punches, right? That's
Yeah.
how I see it, right? Like, maybe it's just our egos just clashing against each other, or maybe it was her.
Once again, we have welcome back to the
What?
ambiguous her. Welcome back.
No, when I heard that line, I screamed.
And here,
When I heard maybe
me
it was her,
too.
I was like, "What do you mean?" She was so explicit about
And
it.
here's the thing. Here's the thing. Several listens, I was like, is she personifying the ego again? But then I was like, that can't be right. Because she goes, maybe, and maybe it was ego swinging. And so it's like, maybe it's this on one hand, and then it's maybe it was her. So the her is not ego. Because
Exactly.
egos, it's a plural ego. So she's like, maybe both our egos are fighting. So she's not gonna single out just one ego. She's like, maybe it was her. Who is this her? We'll never know. She just
We'll
appears
never know.
and she leaves. And Taylor's like, well, flashes of the battle come back to me in a blur. Like, who is
Yeah.
her?
Yeah. And that I think was a crazy revelation. This is why I think a big reason why this was on the 3 a.m. and not on the
Mm-hmm.
regular album. It was too big of like a gasp moment, I think.
Yeah.
That's my theory. Well, why don't you read the chorus?
Yeah, all that bloodshed, crimson clover. Uh-huh, sweet dream was over. My hand was the one you reached for all throughout the Great War. Always remember, tears on the letter. I vowed not to cry anymore if we survive the Great War.
Oh, man.
All that bloodshed,
Um,
crimson clover. Oh
no,
my God.
the
I
way
love
she
the way she
sings it
sings it.
is her tone is fantastic. So, yeah, so um yeah,
She's
it's
really
it's
cooking.
been violent, right? We don't have just
Um,
knuckles bruised purple. We have blood that's covering clover fields, which are green usually, unless they are covered in crimson blood.
Yeah, literally, clovers are supposed to be lucky, right? Like a four-leaf clover. And she painted all their like luck red, or they painted it red with all the fighting. And it immediately is followed by like that sweet dream was over. She's like, "Ooh, having nightmares."
Yeah, yeah. The sweet dream is like, to me, it's like the honeymoon stage,
Hmm.
or the where you're like everything's gonna be happily ever after, period, right? But no, like relationship, there's gonna be ups and downs. But this one does seem to be like a very bloody
Oh my
fight,
gosh, I'm about to
a
cry.
difficult, especially
I'm
difficult
about to
one.
cry.
Oh,
And
don't.
the reason I'm about to cry is literally the next line of my hand was the one you reached for all throughout the Great War, because Taylor has this imagery constantly of like you squeeze my hand as I'm about to leave. You squeeze my hand three times in the back of taxi, where she's like, the reason they can get through things is because he's reaching back out for her and she's like reciprocating, or the other way. So she's like, my hand is the one you reach for, even though we're in this battle and we're fighting and I'm taking the battle underground and all that stuff, you're still reaching out to me. You're still putting in that effort. Like it is effort to reach for someone, especially like have we talked about Renegade? Yes, we did. Um,
Yes, we did.
and it's like this song is almost the reflection of Renegade, because in Renegade she also has that battle imagery of like uh
You fire
yeah, you
missiles
fire
just
missiles
you
because
because
you
you hate
hate yourself.
yourself.
Like he was fighting at her, but she's like, you're hitting me, but I'm reaching back for you too. Like there was that always that like that reaching towards something, right?
Hmm.
So my hand was the one you reached for all throughout the Great War. Like this fight, no matter what, like, ugh. And so, and
Yeah,
yeah.
I love that because it's this idea of hope,
Mhm.
right? There's all this the first verse and most of this chorus is, especially the first half of the chorus, is all about the fighting and the hardship and the difficulties. But my hand was the one you reached for, is that spark of, okay, maybe we can get through this. And that's where you have the turn in the course as well. Like, I tears on the letter. I'm guessing it might an apology letter, perhaps, or an
Yep.
explanation. It might not have been a literal letter. It could have been a text message or a voicemail or a phone call. But right, in this great war, oh, we got to talk about that. But in
And
this
the
great
always
war
remember.
metaphor,
It's the always remember too.
yeah,
Like
yeah, always
never
remember tears on
forget,
the letter. Yeah, yeah,
basically.
yeah. If we survive the great war, and so we have a little bit of hope
She's like, if
in this chorus
we get
because
through
he's
this.
reaching for her because of the effort. Yeah. And let's back up. So
Yep.
the Great War
Like,
is a reference to World War One,
mhm.
which was not called World War One at the time because they did not
There will
know
be a
that a World
second
War Two
one.
was coming. which looking,
The
which I
dramatic
remember when the song
irony.
dropped, people were like, does she? Yeah, everyone's like, does she know that there's? She does know there's a World War Two coming, right? And then, oh my God, we did get World War Two.
We didn't know
Um,
what we didn't know. And at the same time, I I think yes, Taylor knows. Like it's she knows this, but I think
yeah, she knows.
she was also having that same like nihilistic hope. Like there is an awareness of this is the Great War, but there does not have to be a World War II. That's the thing. When you know
Mm-hmm.
history, right, you are not doomed to repeat it. Like you don't like she's aware of this. So she's like, if I call this the Great War, she could have called this something like Great World War One, but she's like, I don't want there to be a World War Two. I know myself, I know what we can get into. Like she's so like psychoanalyzing herself, like being so self-aware in this song and in a lot of her songs, about how she fights and she knows she can fight dirty, that she's like there is that hope of the like always remember not to cry anymore, right? Where she's like, we don't have to have a World War II if we do right.
Yeah.
And the thing that gets me is in So Long London, it opens up with those war bells. Remember, Hannah?
Yep.
Of
Yep.
like, oh, World War II happened, even though she didn't want it to happen.
Yeah. And that was the thing about the Great War was they called it the war to end all wars. They were really hoping like, okay, now that we've had this war that engulfed basically most of the countries in the world were
Mm-hmm.
impacted in some way, they were like, okay, we don't have to do this anymore. And the other thing about World War One was it was a horrific war. It
Horrific.
was the first war that used trench warfare. It had machine guns. There was poison gas and other chemical warfare used for the first time. It was horrific, and some countries were still using horseback, riding, while others had rapid fire weaponry. It was not a fair fight
They're
in
they're
many ways.
fighting.
By World War II, I think everyone was pretty industrialized war, so it was a little bit different. This one was horrific, and so I think part of the reason why this song is called the Great War and not just any old war is because I think of the destructive impact of the imagery that comes with it.
Yeah. Oh,
So,
this verse
all right,
two,
should we do
Anna.
verse 2?
Yeah.
All right, you drew up some good faith treaties. I drew curtains closed, drank my poison all alone. You said I have to trust more freely. But diesel is desire, you are playing with fire. And maybe it's the past that's talking, screaming from the crypt, telling me to punish you for things you never did. So I justified it.
There's a
Oh
lot
my
to
gosh.
unpack, but I love the you drew versus I drew because
And I love the
it
you
yeah,
drew up as it. you drew up as in writing these treaties, but she drew curtains closed, like
Hmm.
the wordplay of that
Like
too.
pulled
But yes,
them.
you're talking about the yeah to pull them closed. Yeah, but you're talking about the
Yeah.
pronouns, right?
Yeah, that I love that. And I love because we get evidence of that thing Taylor does when is giving she gives a lot of grace, right? So and she paints herself as this like spiteful thing. So she's like, you tried. Like a good faith treaty is like putting in the work to be like, this is where we can compromise, right? So it's like you drew
Right.
up good faith treaties. Meanwhile, I was not hearing that shit. I shut the doors, I closed my curtains, and drunk my poison all alone. She was like, I was getting drunk, basically. And we know from later in the 3 a.m. tracks where she's like, my fourth drink in my hand, these desperate prayers of a cursed man. Taylor and alcohol all through midnight is something so interesting. Taylor and alcohol from reputation to midnights is something to TTBD is something so interesting. I could write essays
Mm-hmm.
on. I could write essays on. I might write essays on it. There's something. Anyway, I can't get into that. But yeah, the idea she's like, I drink my poison all alone. But you also have to wonder, um, the act of like drinking the poison, that is also her own like being in good faith because she's not spreading it. She's like,
Ooh,
if I'm gonna
interesting.
continue to be like poisonous and if I'm gonna continue to like spread poison everywhere, I can't listen to any of your treaties. I need to lock myself in and just drink it alone. You can't be in here with me, right?
Oh, that's self-loathing.
I know it's so self-loathing, and because it directly parallels, she's like, "You're trying, and I know I'm just gonna tear those treaties up. So let me lock myself away."
Yeah. Yeah.
Ugh. And so she makes herself the
Yeah.
villain here. She's like, "I'm the bad guy," because, but also it's
Yeah. And
like,
she's like, I have to. Yeah, I'm not trusting enough. I'm not doing enough. Um,
except
what do you think the diesel is desire means?
it. Okay, let me tell you, this being so connected to that those two lines of you said I had to trust more freely, right? But it's the same thing as maybe it was her. There's something
Mm,
Diesel, I love the sound of it, but Diesel is desire. You were playing with fire. And so Diesel, like fire fuel, that shit will light up. And so
yeah.
something is like her desire for
Yeah.
each other, maybe their desire to like fight, their desire to argue maybe, all of that. And she's like, and you keep trying to like light a fuse, maybe. Maybe
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
want to feed this conflict. She's like, you are fighting me too. I love that because she's like, you're telling me to trust you, but you're provoking me.
Yeah.
You're
There's
provoking me.
something he is doing that is triggering her. We'll talk about hairpin triggers later, right? But there's
Yeah.
something that he's doing that is also making her feel like she wants to bolt or hide or whatever.
Something's happening
Um,
here. It's
and
not just
and then
her.
so she even and then she even tries to explain it like, I mean, maybe I'm crazy. Maybe it's the past that's talking, right? Like
Yeah.
maybe it's you playing with fire, or maybe it's the past that's talking. Um, Screaming from the crypt. The crypt is like another word for like mausoleum or
Also, it's a
grave.
woulda,
There's
coulda,
something
shoulda connection, but we're not going to get into that. We're not going to get into that.
telling me to punish you for things you never did. So to me, this song also reminds me a lot of Afterglow, which is from the Lover album, which also goes into the battle imagery. And for example, that's the one where what does she
Oh
say?
my
She says,
gosh. She's like, fighting
"I
with a
blew
true
things
love is
out of
boxing with
proportion."
no gloves. So there's that. And then she
Right.
immediately goes, I blew things out of proportion. Now you're blue. Put you in jail for something you didn't do.
Yeah. So that's the whole like maybe it's the past that talking screaming from the crypt, right? Like maybe I just blew things out of proportion. And
Like,
I
maybe
think we
I'm
talked about
crazy.
this earlier, Exquisite. I think that the Great War and the Afterglow are the same fight. I think you think they're
I
different,
think
right?
they're different. I think they are I think they're evidence maybe to I think Afterglow itself is evidence to the way Taylor would fight, especially but I think Afterglow was like early in their relationship akin to is it at Cornelia Street? She goes, "So then you called, showed your hand, called me, pulled me back to that
Mm-hmm.
apartment
Mm-hmm.
years ago. So that was like, I think Afterglow takes place in that Cornelia Street moment where she's like, I'm just gonna leaving, I'm bolting, I'm leaving. And then he calls her back. I think the Great War, because of the like title, to me, it feels like probably something that is intimately connected with Hits Different in the sense of where we know there was a breakup and then that they got back together and that this was like a more
Mm,
serious breakup. And that's why it had to be more like a more serious title. Um Afterglow, she's like, let's
yeah.
bask in this like post fight versus this like this was a huge thing. Like this great war that they had where she was like, you keep coming to me. These treaties are like, and I guess to circle back to what a treaty is, it's like both parties admitting a wrong, but deciding together like
Yeah.
what they're going to do differently. Um,
Yeah.
and oh, actually, I'm like coming back to that I drew curtains closed, drink my poison all alone. Is like I'm
Mm-hmm.
imagining
Mm-hmm.
this treaty of her like he's coming to her window and being like, okay, you did this, I did this. You're poisonous, but I'm poisonous. And she's like, you know what? Close the curtain on you. I'm gonna drink my own poison, right? And that's when he's like, wait, just trust me. And she's like, you're doing this, and it's making me crazy, but maybe I'm making me crazy, and that's why I'm punishing
Yeah.
you. But maybe you did do
Yeah.
things you did. And that's why
Yeah.
she's like, maybe you
Yeah.
did do it. Maybe that's why I do think it's a different fight. I think it's a much bigger fight. Um,
Yeah. I think either way you interpret it, whether it's the same fight or different fight, uh, you get this idea of her, the way she fights,
mhm.
right? Um, whether it's, uh, the way that she wants to draw curtains closed, or I lived like an island, punished you with silence. That's very
Mhm.
similar to Spineless in my Tomb of
Yep.
Silence.
She has
Um,
told her she's like, I like to go silent. I don't I just will. And we also hear it in
yeah,
that in Fresh Out the Slammer. Um Silent dinner's bitter, right? We
yeah,
just won't
yeah.
talk.
So I
And we
think,
hear it in
and
False God of like not talking. Taylor has told us that this is one of her like things she does.
yeah. So either way you interpret it, I think, because for me the language is so similar.
Hmm.
I like to think of Afterglow as her the pretty version of the
Hmm.
fight that she gave us in Lover, or because she doesn't have to share everything with us. Whereas the Great War is like the
Yeah.
full exposition of the pain and the violence and the consequences of it.
Hmm.
Either way, we are getting a woman in the Great War who is
Yeah.
raw and
Yeah.
angry,
Love and
and
Midnights are so
I do.
intimately connected for that reason, but we couldn't.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And right. And so whether it's the same fight or an escalation of a small fight they've had
Hmm.
before, I think you do see though then in Midnight's that it goes crazy, right?
Hmm.
Oh, so yeah, why don't you go into the chorus?
Yeah, so the chorus is basically the same until right at that
No, the
always
whole I think it's
remember.
no even the second line is different.
Oh
Even the
yeah, the
second line is
bomb.
different.
Okay, yeah. So bloodshed, crimson closer. The bombs were closer, right? So she's like, they're coming, they're coming, they're coming to get us. And even though they are, he's like, my hand was the one you reached for. And I do have that question of who is shooting these bombs? Are they both are? We know he's launched
Good
missiles,
question.
so but the bombs are closer, and we know these are not outside bombs, right? These are not like the sweet nothing outside the house. These are coming from them.
It's coming from inside the house.
Yeah. And she's like, my hand was the one you reached for all throughout the Great War. Always remember the burning embers. So, like, those bombs
Mm-hmm.
did hit. There was fire, there was flame, there was like burning. And time has passed. So this is like this to me, there is a passage of time for how long this fight was. So she's like, the
Mm-hmm.
bombs were closer, the burning embers. So the bombs did hit even while you're
Yeah.
reaching for me. I vowed not to fight anymore if we survive the Great War. Um, yeah,
And that reminds me of the story of us. And I would lay my armor down if you said you'd rather love than
yeah.
fight. Um, and she doesn't want to. I mean, she doesn't want to fight. Although the other thing this makes me think of is, I think this is what happened when they survived the Great War and she vowed not to fight anymore
Hmm.
is it turned the bolter into the stayed too long.
Exactly. And that's one of my things. It's like she was like, okay, my instinct is to bolt. My instinct is to go away in silence. We'll when we get to hits different, we'll see like what happens when the bolter regrets bolting, even though that's typically like the bravest thing I could ever do was run. And she was like, maybe that wasn't brave. And then this person either comes back to her. No, we'll get to that when we get to hits different. Um, but yeah.
Put a pin
But
into every
a
other song in
pin.
Taylor's
They're all
discography.
so connected, and we can't talk about things until we talk about them. Um, but yeah, no, it's like, okay, I vowed not to fight. I vowed I was never gonna run. I wasn't gonna run. If I was going to fight, it was gonna be for us and not against us type things. Um,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that is like, that's why it's so long London as like a war requiem song is
Yeah.
crazy. Like post
It's
bombing. Like
crazy. And like yeah, in So Long London, her spine was splitting from carrying up the hill because she didn't want to
she
fight
kept
him.
calm
Right?
and
I'll carry
carried.
you. Yep.
Kept keep calm, carry on. She kept calm and carried the weight of the rift. Like she was like, you know what? I said I wouldn't fight with you anymore. I'm keeping us together. I'm doing this hard
Yeah.
labor. Anyway, hit that bridge, Hannah.
It turned into something bigger. Somewhere in the haze, got a sense I'd been betrayed. Your finger on my hairpin triggers. Soldier down on that icy ground looked up at me with honor and truth. Broken and blue, so I called off the troops. That was the night I nearly lost you. I really thought I'd lost you.
There is so much happening in this bridge. It makes me crazy because here in this bridge, we do get a return to that. Maybe it was her. We get a return to that,
Yeah.
like that battlefield of, and we also get the return of like that. What was he doing? Of that Diesel is desire. You were playing with fire because she goes,
Yeah.
it turned into something bigger. So the fight, it may have been a regular battle, right? It may have been a regular like afterglow battle, something that they typically fight. And then she's like, hold on. In this lavender haze, I'm sensing her ears started twitching. She's like,
Yeah.
wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
The
And I
lavender haze
love the
I'm trying
haze
to
because it's also
protect.
like yes, because you also have the lavender haze, but also the haze of
Hmm.
battle, right? Because there's like
Hmm.
ashes and smoke and gunpowder, smoke, whatever. All of that. It's mixed together into this goopy, terrible atmosphere. And she's like, wait a minute. My ears are pricking. The hairs are raising on the back of my neck.
Yeah.
Like it's that part of the movie where you realize, wait, why is it so quiet? Why is
Yep.
and then boom.
And it was you. That's the
Ugh.
thing. The somewhere in the haze got a since I'd been betrayed. Your finger on my hairpin triggers. You were betrayed. Like something. Your finger on my a hairpin
Yeah.
trigger is something. It's like it will immediately snap, and that's what happened.
Yeah.
She snapped. Like your
Yeah.
finger was on my hairpin triggers. You know them, and so you can touch them. Like I think that's the specific thing.
Yeah, a hairpin trigger is a trigger that requires a very light touch to fire.
Hmm.
Why is your finger there?
You
Your
know
finger should
this.
not be near the
You
trigger.
know all of
Like
them.
and
It's
like
multiple triggers
and
too. It's not just one.
that's why the when cops like in those TV shows or whatever, right? Like they're like they want you to put the gun down because they don't want your finger anywhere near the trigger. Like if your hand's on the trigger, they basically will shoot you back, right? Like
Yeah.
even if you look like you're about to do it. So the triggers are so sensitive and but then so I feel so do you so when you see this image, I kind of see it as like she's above him with like a knife about to like jab his heart. He's on the ground pointing like a gun at her
The,
and like they're both about to like kill
do
each
you
other, right? Like it's almost
do you
over.
know how I see
What?
it? Like, yes, but also
How do you
the
see
way
it?
I see it, okay, we're in that haze of the battlefield, and she senses a knife at her back, and she turns around, maybe like sweeps him under his feet, and he's on the ground. That's what happened. So now they are posed to like hurt each other. Like it was
Oh.
like it was like a tap on the back or whatever, and she maybe like flipped him over her shoulder. Something incapacitated him. So now soldier down on that icy ground. He's got a gun at her. She's got a gun at him. And she's like, you're looking
Yeah.
up at me. And it wasn't betrayal. It was honor and truth. Like maybe you were not trying to hurt me when you tapped me. Maybe you were trying to stall me to get my attention. Like it wasn't, you weren't trying to hurt me. And now I'm like around and
Uh,
you're hurt. And that's what's like a moment of clarity of, oh, you do want to fight with me. You're not trying to fight against me in this battle, on this battlefield.
yeah. Yeah. Okay, I like that fuller imagery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's like
Yeah,
broken
you
and
thought,
blue.
like,
So I told everybody to stop.
yeah, I blew things out of proportion. Now you're
She's
blue.
like, so I called off the troops. Like I'm really getting a image. He's on that ground. His gun is down. Maybe his hands are up, and she's got her gun poised, and she just drops the gun and raises her hand for her troops to fall. And she's like, "That
Yeah.
was the night I nearly lost you because her trigger was so hairpin. She could have shot that gun, and she didn't. And
Yeah.
that's why it was so
Yeah.
near. It was so near. And I really thought I'd lost you. Like maybe she actually did hit him. And he was like, oops.
She got him in the arm.
She got him in the arm when she could have went for the chest. Like
Yeah.
I thought I nearly lost you.
Yeah. That's yeah, there was this bridge is like the climax of this fight where like they were
Mhm.
about to go for it, but then she saw something in him where she believed him. That's what it is, right? She believed what he said in
Yep.
that moment. She chose to believe. Despite the haze, despite the her, despite the triggers, she believed
He
him. And that's
believed
what
that
and
moment of like apology of I'm sorry I hurt you. I'm sorry this happened.
yeah. Or like, hey, we can make this work. Hey, this is what I'm gonna work on. This is what, we're gonna do. We're gonna figure this out. And she believed
Yep.
him.
He allowed himself to
And
get hurt in order to for her to see it. Like he did something. Do something,
he did
babe.
something. And
Risk something in that moment of that
no,
fight.
I was gonna say that because look, she said so here she thinks she's almost lost him. Like she made a mistake.
Hmm.
She, right, could have let him go. But in you're losing me, it's flipped.
Hmm.
You're losing me, right? Like
Hmm.
you need to do something. You need to, but and you did,
Yeah. And
right? Like
yeah,
you lost
for
me.
her in this song, she does something. And what she does is she drops all her weapons. Like she becomes so vulnerable where she's like, no more, called off the troops. I see you
Yeah.
fighting for me, so I'm gonna fight back it together. Like it's gonna be like a combination. Um,
And when that actually works in real life, it's
we get
beautiful,
this
right?
beautiful, like it immediately, like that verse 3 gets, it becomes so
Go for
beautiful
it.
of we can plant a memory garden, say a solemn prayer, place a poppy in my hair. There's no morning glory. It was war. It wasn't fair. And we will never go back. Like,
Just keep going. Keep just
to
read it to
that,
the
we will never go back to that bloodshed crimson clover. The worst was over. My hand was the one you reached for all throughout the Great War. Always remember, we're burned for better. I vowed I would always be yours if we survived because we survived the Great War. I will always be
mm-hmm.
yours because we survived the Great War. I vow I will always be yours. So it's like the immediate surrender, like the surrender, and then the outro feels that like relief in surrender. And the thing that really gets me is
Yeah.
she's like, this was not pretty. It was ugly. It was hurtful. We both hurt. And now we have to remember it. We have to remember, plant a memorial for what happened, right?
Yeah.
Because if you
Yeah.
don't remember,
I,
you're
I,
doomed
I
to
love
repeat
this.
it.
If you don't remember, you're doomed to repeat it. No. And I love all this imagery because World War One, the Great War, does have a lot of imagery that helps people to remember what
Hmm.
happened. Like this idea of like placing a poppy in your hair, or I don't know if in your hair, but red poppies are a
Hmm.
symbol of the
Hmm.
war. A memory garden, obviously, to remember the fallen people. You go and you do prayers, and but she knows that hey, we're not glorifying this war. In fact, there's no morning glory, which is both a flower, morning glory is a
Hmm.
flower, but also it's not something to celebrate, right? It was war. We
And
hurt
it
each
was, we
other,
didn't do,
right?
we both were unfair. Like, especially because it's
Yeah,
interesting because the saying is like all's fair in love and war. And she's like, it was not fair. It wasn't fair. It was
Yeah.
there is no
Yeah.
fairness, right? And also I just love the image. The image I get like when I am at this song is so like visceral and like full of all this beautiful imagery of like that meeting, like her picking him back up off the ground, and then I guess we kind of like fade into them planting this garden together and like him picking one of the poppies they planted and just putting it in her hair after they like say this prayer. A solemn prayer is like it's a sad one. Maybe you're asking forgiveness. Maybe you're doing all this. Like you're being really
Yeah.
intentional. Um, and so
Mm-hmm.
there's so much
It's
intentional. It's
serious.
so intent of like this is our promise, and that's why we get that, and we will never go back, right? To that. Instead of all of that, she's like, the war is over. But we have to remember how bloody the other flowers were. We bloodied up our luck, right? And now all we have
Yeah.
is this poppy of remembrance. Ugh.
Yeah. This clover field that was, you know, supposed to be for springtime and growth and beauty and frolicking, right? It was covered in blood. We can't go back to that anymore. We have to let it, be, allow it to grow. And there are consequences. We're burned for better, right? Like we have
Wait,
scars.
you know what I
And
just
these scars,
realized, Hannah?
what?
Okay,
What?
okay. Their garden, right? Of their clover, like their luck garden, they covered it in red, and they had to replace it with a garden of red poppies, of like bloody poppies. They're
Oh.
like, this is the only red that should remain. This remembrance red. No more blood.
Mm. Yeah.
We can't,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and we
Yeah.
also can't go back to the way it
I
used to
love that.
be, right? They can't. We're burned for
They
better.
can't. Yeah, and it reminds me of Dress, right? If I get burned, at least we were electrified, right? Like
Hmm.
we're and sometimes these scars are good, right? They are reminders,
Hmm.
and so she vowed she would always be yours. So again, this is where she's like committing to stay, right? It didn't turn out to be great in the end. She maybe stayed too long,
Yeah.
but because they survived. They did go through this and make it through. Like it was, they saw a path forward that was okay. We can get through anything
Yeah.
now.
Like this can happen to us and we can survive it. We
Yeah.
are, again, we're burned for better. We are stronger. As long as my hand was the one you reached for, as long as we're together,
Hmm.
then
As long as you keep reaching for me and risk something and do
like
something.
as long as you know where my triggers are, you know not to play with them. Like you shouldn't be playing with fire. I shouldn't be allowing my past to haunt us here. Like it causing me to wake up in the middle of the night with these night terrors, uh,
Yeah.
cursing you out in your sleep, in my sleep. I I won't do that anymore because we survived. Like we got through this. If we can get through this just terrible thing, we can get through anything, right? Right, right,
Yeah.
right. And then wrong.
Wrong.
No, it is like it's just one of those things of like, especially when you think about like Lover and you think about like just how anxious Lover is, and we've known from the beginning. Like since we got Lover, we were like, look at all these anxious love songs. They're beautiful because she's fighting through her anxieties and
Right.
stress. And then we get to hear, and again, I do get the sense of like Taylor can be very protective in her writing, and so you can see she's putting a lot of the onus on herself, but not all of it. If you are a keen
Mm-hmm.
listener and reader, right? She's like, we will never go back. It's not I will never go back, right? Because
Yeah.
but it's interesting, she gets I vow, like it's all I vow. We don't know what he vows back. We never get that.
Yep.
We just know she says I will always be yours. I will not start a war again, right? And there is a dramatic irony in that she had so much faith in her own vow that in her own a vow is like an oath. So you kept me like a secret, I kept you like an oath. Um
Girl, you know what kind of vow it
exactly.
is.
Stop. Enough. Anyway,
It's a
stop.
wedding
Enough.
vow.
Enough, Hannah. Enough. Enough. We're not gonna do this.
I mean, I mean, I mean, I mean, the girl literally did a wedding toast speech in the song
She
"Lover,"
did.
right? Like she sings about paper rings, right? This is a continuation of I vow. Like she is being like, I'm committed. I believe in you. You know, this whole bridge thing that we talked
Yeah.
about.
I'll be waiting
Like
when that rock
we're
in your
in
pocket is
this.
not a pebble. Like we're in this together. When you are on your knees for a
Yeah.
different reason, soldier down on that icy ground. When you're on your knees on the ground for a different reason, and you will look up at that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God! Wait, Hannah.
What?
Oh my God! Oh my God, Hannah!
What?
I can't get out. I'm back at the bridge. And again, when you're on your knees for a different reason, looking up at me with honor and truth for a different reason.
Mm-hmm.
Like when there's something different, it shouldn't have been in pain that you were looking up at me with honor and truth, right? You shouldn't have been my
Mm-hmm.
something blue. Like that's not what it should have been.
Mm.
And that's when she realized she's like, I want you to look up at me differently. Like this, we're meant to be together. I almost lost you when this should have been like a day of celebration, like a sacred new beginning. Um. Anyway, uh,
No, it's it's bad. It's bad.
uh,
Especially because we know that in "You're Losing Me," right? She says it straight up, like, "I wouldn't marry me either, a pathological people pleaser." And in that same bridge, she
only
goes,
wanted you to see
"I
her
all I did is I tried to be the bravest soldier, fighting only in your
fighting
army.
in
Front
only
lines,
your
don't you ignore
army.
me."
Front lines, don't you ignore me. This time, she was the soldier down. Like she was, and Taylor has called herself a soldier and an army doll a couple times.
Many
Many, many,
times.
many times. And she's like, I was fighting in only your army. Because this time they're not on opposite sides. She's like, I'm back with you. Remember in the Great War, I swore, I vowed to you I would be in your army. And we would
Yep.
only fight together. And I was on the front lines dying, taking missiles, and you were ignoring me, even though I vowed. And the reason I'm taking these missiles, because I vowed I would always be yours. And we don't get his vow back. And that's the problem. We
Mm-hmm.
don't know. Anyway, I'm upsetting myself. As I'm getting upset. But yeah, especially because she thought the worst were over. The dramatic irony here is that she was so hopeful she committed the same mistake of her own ancestors by calling it of the own like the original mistake of calling something a great war because you don't think there's ever going to happen again. She made the same
Yep.
mistake.
Yep.
She was like, this is the great war, it's never going to happen again because we promised each other, and I promised I would stay. I promised I wasn't going to let my past get me. I promised that her swinging, whoever her is, wasn't going to get me. You said you were never going to mess with my hairpin triggers again. We were going to figure out our ways around this. There was going to be no more
Mm-hmm.
blowing bombs up. And instead, we get So Long London, which is like, oh my God, the end of the Second War with the bells.
Yep.
Anyway,
Yeah.
oh, my
Well,
Shayla, my Shayla.
I know. I know. Well, that's just the first track of this crazy second uh, part of the album. Do you have any emoji
Oh my
ideas?
gosh, I feel like our listeners should give us flowers. Because guess what? We
All
will
right, yeah, give
always
us
be
our flowers.
yours. We'll always be. They should just give us some
Yeah.
flowers.
Please, yeah, please drop some flowers. I will say I did make one error, like factual error. The song's actually self-written by Taylor
Hmm.
Swift. Aaron produced it. So she probably wrote the whole thing and sent it over to him and then he was like, "I have the perfect track or I'll make something for you." So that is my bad. But it is obviously co-produced by the two of them. So maybe we'll get some engagement rage bait from people who didn't finish the episode and hear my correction. So
Yeah.
that's fine.
Ugh. Anyway, and you know what's crazy? We're really gonna get into it next time because Bigger Than the Whole Sky is next. Which coming off
Yeah,
of
that's going to be a
a
tough song.
violent war song into this like memorial. Ugh. Anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So yeah, so welcome to another back to one of Taylor's deepest fears of, scaring away, fighting with the one you love, boxing with no gloves,
Ugh.
but then having a kind of hopeful ending,
Yeah.
which good for her. And yeah, we will continue with the rest of the 3 a.m. tracks. Thank you so much for listening. Please support us by interacting with us on all the social media platforms, leaving us
Yeah.
comments, supporting us on Ko-Fi, and we will see you soon.
See ya.